Hey, what's going on, guys? Ty, Chasing Cardboard. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to a outdoor edition of the report card videos. We put these out every few weeks. We talk about some cards that we submitted to get graded and some things that we learned. Today's going to be a little different. We want to share some insights from a very popular question that we get, and that is, how the heck do you sell all your stuff that you're getting, all these massive collections? How are you selling it during a recession? Because a lot of these collections that we bought, we're buying during a tough economic time. And there's some principles that we've learned that I think will help you if you want to apply them to your sports car reselling business or to any business for that matter, because I think they apply universally, okay? So hang tight for that. We're gonna give you 3 or 4 different tips, and then we're gonna walk through some cards at the end that we submitted recently from collections. But if you're desiring more transparency, kind of more in-the-moment thoughts from Chasing Cardboard, I encourage you to subscribe to our new email list. You can click the link in the top right corner. You can click the link in the show notes. You can even pause the video right here and scan the QR code, and it'll take you right to the submission form, the sign-up form for you to sign up. It's gonna be a weekly email list. I love to write, and so I wanted just to provide a way for me to write out thoughts that I maybe can't say in a YouTube video, give you some insights, some lessons learned, some cards that we came across, some conversations that we had, and just allow you to kind of dig deeper into the journey that we're going on. So if you want to be a part of our roadie email list, sign up in that link, and you can join us for that. Okay, so some lessons that we've learned with selling sports cards. Again, in a recession, it's tough because the market shifts and the mindset shifts, and so you have to change the way you operate your business to a certain extent. And we have a lot of channels that we sell sports cards through shows, through our eBay accounts, which you can find links to that in our show notes, through other buyers that we just know through the industry. But there's some principles that will apply. And the first one that I think is very important, and you'll notice this because of the way we buy. You notice the dollar boxes, common semi-star boxes that we bought in episode 6 with Chad and in episode 7 with Joey. We do a lot of that, and you might think, oh my gosh, that's overwhelming. Well, that is true. And that's usually why these things pile up in people's houses, is because it is overwhelming. And the first tip that I think you need to take away and maybe learn is be willing to do what others are not willing to do. If you're willing to do what other people are not willing to do, you're going to be able to charge a premium and find opportunities that you didn't think existed. Now, you think, for instance, at your own house, right? You don't do your plumbing work normally unless you're willing to take risk and get dirty a little bit. You don't want to be a sanitary specialist. You don't clean out your septic tank, because those things are tasks that most people just aren't willing to do. There's a reason they get paid 6 figures to do those jobs. They're willing to do what other people aren't willing to do. And I think that exists in sports cards too. Dollar boxes are a great example. If you take the time to sell those things out the right way, you can make pretty good money and maximize your time to a certain extent. So tip number 1, do things other people aren't willing to do. Number 2, build loyalty as fast as possible. Whatever you're doing in business, this really does apply to sports cars too. Build loyalty. You think about the brands that you support. You think about the Apples, the Chick-fil-A's, the Chipotle's, the Upside. Be sure to click the link in the top right corner for Upside. You usually don't even think about the product they deliver necessarily after the loyalty has been built with you. I think about Apple, right? Every couple releases with a MacBook Pro, I'm buying a new MacBook Pro. Sometimes I don't even look at the specs. I just know I'm going to refresh what I have because Apple has taken care of me so many times. I know I'm gonna get a very solid delivery, time in, time out. And they've built that loyalty. They've built that loyalty in me, so I automatically gravitate back towards them. You may think that doesn't apply to sports cards or your eBay store, but it does. And I have people that have been buying from me for 10+ years, and I can charge a premium sometimes on certain things because people want to know what to expect when they buy. And they're willing to pay a few dollars more for something to know that the customer service, the packing, the delivery time is all going to be up to par or exceed their expectations. And so if you build loyalty, you do little things to hook in that buyer early on, it's going to pay dividends for you down the road, because you're going to find that your customer base grows and grows and grows just because of loyalty, not necessarily because of your inventory. So kind of keep that in mind. Focus on building loyalty as fast as you can. Number 3, when listing sports cards, focus on one sport per day. Again, I can't stress this enough. It's important to simplify things in the way you sell. And with sports cards, it can be overwhelming, and there's nomenclature you have to learn. There's sets that you have to learn. There's comping cards, finding the comparable values of cards. All of that stuff you'll learn over time if you get out there and just start doing it. But early on in the process, you need to do whatever you can to simplify the process so you don't get overwhelmed. And one of the ways to do that is to focus on just listing or selling one sport per day. That allows you to get cards out there where more than likely buyers are going to combine purchases. They're going to know they're going to see other players they want to get. They're going to get a feed on their listings and their email from eBay about new cards from that particular sport. And a lot of times buyers focus on certain sports. You'd be surprised where I just have buyers individually focus on sports during a season and not worry about other sports. So simplify your process, list one sport a day, and get as many from that sport as you can. I mean, obviously, if you can sort them down into subsets or players or teams, it will help you as well. But at the very least, don't go from sport to sport to sport throughout the day. You'll never get rhythm, you'll never get momentum, and you'll just be frustrated that you didn't get as much traction as you could have just by putting buckets of sports together before you list. And number 4, and this is really important because as you go through the honeymoon phase of selling, everybody knows that, right? You start to sell things, you feel really good, you have a couple of weeks of good stuff, and then you see the stacks of cards building up and you just get overwhelmed and that unspoken pressure sits on your shoulders. One way to combat that is to focus on getting better at one metric every single week. And look, I'm a competitive guy. I time out a lot of stuff just because I want to see if I can do it better, from the time to ship things, from the ability to list certain things per hour. I run metrics on everything almost monthly. And one way for you to build momentum consistently is just on Sunday night or Monday morning, pick a metric that you're going to improve upon this week. And it can be something simple like, hey, I sold to 15 customers this week. Next week I want to sell to 16 customers. Or I listed 5 cards per hour last week, and this week I want to list 10 cards per hour. Pick a metric, improve upon it. You do that 52 times a year, and before long, your little side hustle is gonna be in a nice little rhythm, and you're gonna be impressed as you sit back and think, my gosh, this thing is running like a well-oiled machine, because every single week you improved upon something to make your sports card selling business better that week. So that's a good way to combat the frustrations and the pressures that build up from having to do everything so much and so often. Hope that helps, okay? All right, so if you like that type of commentary, let us know in the comments. It would be helpful. We can provide more of that stuff. Obviously, we'll provide more of that stuff in the email list as well. But want to provide as much info as we can as you look to sell and buy sports cards in your own chasing cardboard journey. All right, so let's talk about some cards that we had submitted for grading in recent episodes. This first one was great, and I don't know if you remember, Billy from Denton. It was episode 3. Mike was out there going through his garage with him. He did a lot of dumpster diving and still does and finds cards. Well, before we filmed that episode, Matt was able to acquire a 1959 Topps Bob Gibson rookie. And you think about that being acquired out of a dumpster and it like blows your mind. But I remember the text message I got from Matt, and it was like, hey, I just got this card from Billy. We're filming an episode with them. Look at this thing. Look how good of condition it's in. Tell me what grade you think this Bob Gibson rookie will get. Because when I saw the card, I thought edges look good, corners look, everything looks pretty good. It's pretty well centered. I was tagging that as an SGC 5.5 or 6. That's what I told him. Matt was in that same world. We were obviously dreaming about a 7. So we sent that card in, and you could have sold it raw for between $450 and $550. It's kind of the going rate. Let's assume we could have sold it for $500. We sent it in. It came back on SGC 5, which is a great card. It's a card I think he already owns. It wasn't mine. Matt kept it, but then flipped it to a guy for a cash deal. So he added $300 in value by grading it at an SGC 5. But what a great find, right? Dumpster dive vintage find, Bob Gibson rookie. What a beautiful card. Okay, number 2. If you remember Billy from Abilene, again, a collection that Mike was on the road up in Abilene and bought that box of cards, avoided or decided not to buy some of the stuff like the Star Wars Italian set and some other cool things, but bought that dollar box, that quantity box for $1,100 or $1,200. And the good thing about buying quantity boxes like that is every so often you buy cards, you're going through them, and you find a stack of players that just are timed right in the market. And these Bowman first cards were just beautifully timed. We had a stack of Riley Green Bowman Chrome first, refractors and X-fractors and colored. We had some Adley Rutschmans. We had some Julio Rodriguez's. It was just a perfect stack that we immediately sent off to get graded. I think raw, we could have sold them all for probably $700 to $800. We sent them off for grading, spent another couple $100 to get them graded, and sold them all for about $2,000. Some good grades, but more importantly, some really good timing with just players being called up, Riley Green specifically. That allowed us to basically pay for that entire collection with that little stack of cards. So some really good ones there out of the other Billy's collection. We got to start finding other names. Too many Billy's. All right, and then number 3, a hard lesson that we learned here. And a lot of times, if you're a seller or you're comping things, it's really easy to get sucked into the idea of thinking every card you have is a gem mint, is an SGC 10 or a PSA 10. And the reality is, especially for cards that are in their 90s or earlier than that, it is so hard to get gem mints or even 9s for that matter. Not because the conditions aren't good, but because they're graded more rigorously. They just are. And they don't want to dish out a lot of gem mint cards for those older cards, so they're very strict on the way they grade. We had some 1996 Topps Finest Star Wars cards that we got really googly-eyed on. We saw these and we thought, man, gem mint versions of these are hundreds of dollars. We were able to acquire a big stack of Star Wars Finest cards, thinking that these 15, 20 cards that we pulled out were just gonna be gem mints. So we sent them off to get graded, and we were in for a rude awakening because we got back all 8s, 8.5s, and 9s. And a lot of that falls on me because, again, you get excited, you assume your cards are great, you forget they're 25 years old, and on Finest, first edition Chrome cards, there's surface issues out the wazoo, and surface issues crushed us, and we did not get one gem mint, and we end up losing hundreds of dollars of value in those cards. And it was just a lesson learned, right? And a lesson for you to learn to be very stringent on yourself with older cards and grading. And if you think it's going to get a high grade, probably safe to assume you're going to be a couple points off, probably in the low side with older cards, especially vintage cards. So there you go, right? Lesson learned. Lost a few $100 on that deal, but every time you learn, it makes you better for the next one, and hopefully you're able to do that too. Let me know what you think about this episode. Let me know if these are helpful for you, anything else you want to see, any other questions that you have. Keep chasing, guys. Keep learning. Enjoy this journey. We hope you can enjoy it with us. Subscribe to our email list, share this with your friends, and have yourself an amazing week. See ya.